Today, we're really going beneath the surface of preventative oral health, looking into a system that promises something pretty radical, a patient-led way to basically, well, kiss your dentist goodbye.
Yeah, the mission here, it's explicitly about challenging, decades of established dental thinking, the dogma.
Right.
We're trying to move past that frustrating loop. People get stuck in recurring cavities, endless treatments. We've synthesized sources focusing really intensely on bacterial balance, non-invasive strategies, and ultimately giving you, the patient, more control. Empowerment, really.
It sounds like a total flip of the traditional script. The
Yeah.
sources we've looked at, they suggest the core, maybe life-changing insight is this. Dental disease isn't just something inevitable you manage with, painful procedure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead, it's entirely preventable and, get this, often reversible.
That's the absolute heart of the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is the sharp critique aimed at the traditional model. Dentistry, too often defaults to just being a repair service, right?
Fixing symptoms?
Fixing symptoms, drilling cavities, surgically treating gums, rather than proactively working on the actual health, the environment of the mouth.
And the sources are clear. They say you, the patient, have the real power to stop and even reverse these problems yourself, because this approach sees dental disease not as like an unavoidable structural thing or just getting older,
Right, not genetics or age, primarily.
but specifically as a bacterial infection where you control the environment.
And if you look back, historically, the industry wasn't always focused on, let's say, preservation above all else. We see some pretty aggressive early treatments. Take the gingivectomy. That's the radical cutting and stitching of gums.
Ooh, sounds brutal.
It often led to significant pain, disfigurement sometimes, and really only delayed tooth loss temporarily. It was quite a harsh strategy.
Which kind of puts what came next into perspective. The move towards more quote-unquote modern invasive stuff, like Dr. Black's standardizing fillings. That actually led dentistry down a path that diverged pretty sharply from general medicine.
It did. And we can't forget the whole history of amalgam fillings either, that mercury-based material. There's an outcry quite early on about potential neurological damage.
Ah, the Mad Hatter connection from Alice in Wonderland, right, from mercury poisoning.
Precisely. Yeah, that concern was there. But the fillings, well, they stuck around largely because they were affordable. But the problem hasn't gone away because the sources point out that even today's modern white plastic fillings, they're often called plaque magnets
Plaque magnets, why?
because they tend to attract those sticky cavity-forming bacteria right to their edges. It means even a perfectly done filling has a limited lifespan, and each replacement potentially risks the tooth's future health.
Okay, so if the whole drill and fill fix-it model is inherently flawed because, well, the materials themselves aren't perfect, then we need to shift focus to what the body already provides. And that brings us, I guess, to our ultimate defense mechanism, saliva.
Exactly. We need to stop thinking of teeth as just inert bone and start seeing them more like, say, a sturdy coral reef. That reef relies entirely on the surrounding ocean, in this case, saliva, for its survival. Saliva is your secret weapon, and it's renewable.
So what's this protective fluid actually doing for us minute by minute?
Well, its job is absolutely crucial. Protection, lubrication, and critically mineralization. For that repair process to happen, healthy saliva needs to be slightly alkaline. The ideal resting pH is around 7.4.
7.4, okay.
At that point, it's considered supersaturated with the minerals teeth need, calcium, and phosphate. They're just ready, poised to diffuse into any tiny enamel defects and immediately start repairing and replenishing.
But what are we doing in our daily lives that messes this up? Because clearly it is getting messed up for a lot of people.
It's often simple lifestyle habits. Frequent eating, constant snacking, or just sipping on beverages all day long. Even plain water, if sipped constantly, dilutes saliva's protective qualities and can lower the mouth's pH.
And once that pH drops,
Then we hit the danger zone.
which is what? Below 7.4?
Significantly below. The real danger zone starts anytime the pH dips below about 6.0. When that happens, literally every tooth surface becomes vulnerable to mineral loss. It's like an acid bath starting.
And that acidic environment is perfect for
The harmful bacteria, especially Streptococcus mutans,
Yeah.
to absolutely thrive and kickstart the decay process.
Okay, this leads to a really important question then. How do we fix the pH? How do we get it back up quickly and consistently after we eat or drink?
The key strategy highlighted is something called mouth resting. It's simple in concept.
Yeah.
After eating or drinking anything other than plain water, you need to give your mouth a break.
A break. How long?
Ideally an hour or even a bit more. That allows your natural protective saliva flow to do its job,
Yeah.
restore that healthy pH balance, wash away debris, and importantly, begin that remineralization process.
An hour, though, that feels challenging in modern life, doesn't it? What about constant habits people have, like sipping coffee through the morning or maybe flavored water? How do the sources say we should manage that?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and the sources don't really pull punches on this. They emphasize that any liquid with acid,
Mm.
and that includes black coffee, sparkling water, juice, soda, you name it, requires that hour of resting afterwards.
So no constant sipping.
The advice is really to consciously shift the habit. Instead of sipping constantly over hours, consume that drink within a shorter dedicated window,
Yeah.
maybe 15, 20 minutes. Then follow it immediately with that rest period. The mouth simply cannot heal if it's under constant acidic attack.
Okay, so mouth resting is the big defensive play. What about offense?
Mm-hmm.
Speeding up healing. That's where xylitol comes in, right? Tell us about this.
It's a sugar, but not really.
Exactly. Xylitol isn't just your average sugar substitute. It's technically a pentose health sugar. That means it has a unique 5-carbon structure. You find it naturally in things like birch trees and some berries.
And how does that 5-carbon structure make a difference in the mouth?
It works on 2 main fronts. First, those cavity-causing bacteria, Streptococcus mutans specifically, they try to eat it. They try to metabolize this 5-carbon sugar for energy, but they can't.
It effectively jams up their metabolic machinery. It starves them and helps control their population growth.
Okay, that's clever. What's the second way?
The second way is it creates this thing called a hygroscopic pull. Basically, it draws moisture. This action stimulates an extra flow of that beneficial, mineral-rich healing saliva right when you consume it.
So practically speaking, how do you use this? What's the advice for integrating xylitol day to day?
The advice is actually pretty focused and simple. Consume about 1 to 2 grams of 100% xylitol. That usually means using mints or gum made with pure xylitol
How often?
3 to 5 times per day. And the timing is absolutely crucial. Use it right at the end of a meal or snack.
Right after eating.
Yes, because that simple habit basically converts what would normally be hours of potential post-meal acid damage into hours of active healing, boosting what your saliva naturally wants to do.
And the benefits aren't just limited to preventing cavities in your own mouth. The systemic effects seem pretty profound, especially regarding mothers and babies.
This is where the evidence gets really quite compelling. There are studies showing that when mothers consistently use xylitol during pregnancy and after birth, it significantly reduces the transfer of those cavity-causing bacteria to their infants.
Reduces the transfer.
Yes. By cutting down on that early colonization, they found kids whose mothers used xylitol at somewhere between 85% and even up to 92% fewer cavities later on.
92%. That's staggering. Like from the mother using xylitol mints or gum?
It's a massive, potentially lifelong benefit from a very simple, safe intervention.
And wasn't there also that unexpected finding from a study in Malawi, something about preterm births?
That's correct. That study, while initially focused on oral health impacts, stumbled upon a really significant systemic benefit. Consistent xylitol use by pregnant women was associated with a noticeable reduction in the risk of preterm birth.
Wow.
It directly links this simple, oral hygiene strategy managing bacteria in saliva flow to critical outcomes in pregnancy and for the infant.
Okay, so we've got the core strategy. Mouth resting, supported by xylitol. Now we need to tackle the things that, frankly, every dentist has probably told us to do since we were kids. The sources call them the 3 F's of dogma. Let's start with flossing.
Right, flossing. The long-standing belief that flossing is absolutely essential for preventing gum disease and cavities, well, it gets seriously challenged in these sources.
How so?
They point heavily to the investigative journalism work done by Helen Rumbelow. She dug deep into the research and found that the widespread mandate for flossing seemed to be built more on decades of kind of professional consensus or dogma rather than solid, long-term scientific proof of its effectiveness for the general population.
Hold on. Are you saying that decades of advice, floss daily, isn't actually backed by strong, long-term evidence? What did Rumbelow uncover?
She found that when researchers actually tracked large groups of people over many years, the difference in outcomes like cavity rates or severe gum disease between those who flossed religiously and those who didn't was often statistically insignificant.
Insignificant.
Yeah. The sources argue that many people don't floss correctly anyway, potentially causing harm. And for those who do maintain excellent pH control and use other effective hygiene methods, the added benefit of flossing might be marginal. It's good for dislodging big chunks of food, sure, but maybe not the ultimate weapon against that microscopic bacterial film we thought it was.
That's quite something. Okay, moving to the next F, fillings. This ties back to the critique of just drilling and filling. The advice here seems really provocative. Delay treatment for small cavities.
It definitely sounds counterintuitive, maybe even dangerous at first glance. But the reasoning is based on tooth structure. Drilling, even carefully, inherently compromises the tooth's original design, that crystalline keystone structure which is built to distribute biting forces really efficiently. Once you cut into it, those forces travel differently. This could eventually lead to problems down the road, like tiny cracks between teeth, or sometimes even the nerve inside the tooth dying off later. Plus, remember those white fillings? They often need replacing every 10, maybe 15 years. Each replacement takes away more tooth structure, further risking the tooth's long-term survival.
But waiting 3 to 6 months hoping a small cavity heals itself, that goes against every instinct. Isn't a filling, even an imperfect one, safer than risking a root canal later?
Well, the crucial context here is that the sources advise this delay only for very small initial stage cavities, and only if the person fully commits to the complete home care system we're discussing. The pH management, the xylitol, the specific rinses.
Okay, it's conditional.
Very conditional. The idea is you have to fundamentally change the environment first. Reduce the bacterial load, keep the pH high, give the saliva the minerals it needs. If you do all that, the argument goes, you give the tooth a fighting chance to remineralize naturally. And the sources strongly argue that a fully healed, natural tooth surface is always superior to putting in any artificial material.
Right. Makes sense in that context. Okay, finally, the third F, fluoridation. This is always a hot topic.
It is, and the sources offer a very nuanced perspective here. They draw a really clear line between systemic intake like drinking fluoridated water and topical use like in toothpaste or rinses.
What's the issue with drinking it?
The main concern is the risk of fluorosis, especially in young children, say under 6 years old, while their permanent teeth are still developing under the gums. Systemic ingestion can lead to those white or sometimes brown spots or streaks on the enamel.
So caution with ingestion during those formative years. But what about using it on the teeth, topically?
That's viewed very differently and positively. Using a dilute sodium fluoride solution topically, the example given is often a 0.05% ACT rinse, is strongly supported for both adults and children over 6.
Why the difference?
Because it's a local application. It helps
Yeah.
directly with remineralization, strengthening enamel that might be weakened or damaged right where it's needed. You get the chemical benefit without the significant systemic absorption risk associated with ingestion. It's about using fluoride strategically, not just globally.
Okay, so for someone who wants to put all these supported pieces together, the xylitol, the pH focus, the right kind of fluoride, the sources lay out a pretty specific routine. They call it the complete mouth care system. Can we walk through that sequence?
Yes, and the sequence matters. It's designed to maximize the protective and mineralization effects at each step. It actually starts before brushing with an unflavored chlorine dioxide rinse. Brands like Closize or Ultradex are mentioned.
Chlorine dioxide before brushing. How's that different from, say, Listerine? What's it doing first?
It's highly reactive stuff. Chlorine dioxide works by oxidizing volatile sulfur compounds. Those are the main culprits behind bad breath. And it also helps quickly stabilize the mouth's pH. The idea, according to the sources, is that this step kind of preps the microbial environment, neutralizing some nasties and making the surfaces more receptive to the fluoride that comes next.
Interesting. Okay, so rinse first, then comes brushing, but with a very specific toothpaste choice. Crest regular cavity protection.
Yes, specifically the paste version, which has 0.243% sodium fluoride. And critically, the sources emphasize finding a version that avoids the ingredient glycerin.
Wait, glycerin, why avoid that? Isn't that in practically everything as a moisturizer or binder?
It is very common, yes. And it's sticky. The argument presented is that while you want the fluoride delivered to the tooth, that sticky glycerin might form a coating on the enamel.
A berry.
Potentially, yes. A barrier that could inhibit the natural diffusion of calcium and phosphate from your saliva back into the tooth structure, which is essential for deep remineralization. The goal is clean the surface and deliver fluoride without leaving behind something that blocks the natural repair process.
Got it. Clean, fluoride, no sticky residue. Okay, and after brushing comes the final step, a two-part rinsing process.
Correct. After brushing and spitting out the toothpaste but not rinsing with water yet, you first use an antimicrobial mouthwash like Listerine. Swish that around.
And then immediately after.
Immediately follow it with a topical ACT 0.05% sodium fluoride rinse. Swish that, then spit. The sequence is thought to let the rinses work together. Listerine clears out more bacteria, and then the AZT rinse lays down that final protective layer of fluoride on the clean enamel. Don't eat or drink for at least 30 minutes after.
It really shows how all these steps are designed to work together, managing the environment and zooming out again, connecting this to the bigger picture. It really underscores that oral health isn't just about teeth and gums in isolation, is it?
Not at all. It's increasingly clear that the mouth is a crucial gateway to overall systemic health. What happens there influences circulation, inflammation throughout the body, even brain function.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Fundamentally, it means you likely have far more immediate, actionable control over your oral health than you might think. By diligently managing your mouth's pH, mostly through mouth resting, and actively supporting your saliva's healing power with tools like xylitol and the right topical fluoride, you can make a huge difference.
It really is foundational knowledge. And before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, really provocative thought from the sources. It ties this simple habit of mouth resting directly to your brain health.
Yeah, this is fascinating. It involves a silent biological connection between certain foods you eat, specifically leafy green vegetables, and your cardiovascular and even cognitive performance. It's all about nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide,
Right.
the gas that helps blood vessels relax.
Exactly. It's vital for healthy blood pressure, good circulation, including blood flow to the brain. And the production pathway partly starts on your tongue.
How does that work?
Okay, so certain bacteria that live on the surface of your tongue interact with nitrates, which are abundant in foods like spinach, kale, beets. Now, if you chew and swallow these foods quickly, the nitrates mostly go down to your stomach.
But
But if you allow for that extended period of mouth resting, the sources suggest 60 to 90 minutes after eating these nitrate-rich foods, those specific tongue bacteria have enough time to convert the nitrates into nitrite right there in your saliva.
and then what happens to the nitrite?
When you eventually swallow that nitrite-rich saliva, it gets converted into beneficial nitric oxide gas in the acidic environment of your stomach, and some is also produced in your nose. This nitric oxide then gets into your system, relaxing blood vessels. So that simple oral habit, just letting your mouth rest after eating greens, is potentially unlocking this crucial chemical pathway for your heart and brain health that you might otherwise miss out on.
That is a truly fantastic and kind of mind-blowing example of how the invisible environment inside your mouth, an environment you now know you have tools to control, can directly influence the visible long-term health of your entire body. Really powerful stuff. Go forth and enjoy a healthier mouth.